Hey guys, first off, I just want to thank you all so much for just those of you who have subscribed and are watching the videos that I'm putting up and are commenting. Your comments have been so sweet and encouraging, especially in this difficult time. And it just reminds me that I'm not alone in this struggle of a failed frozen embryo transfer, and just the struggle of infertility, which is the whole reason why I wanted to do these videos in this channel in the first place, is to reiterate that message that you're not alone. But I just want to let you guys know that I have received that from you. So thank you so much, and thank you so much to my friends and my family who have been there for me and who have prayed for me and supported me and given me a safe place to grieve and weep, and because this is a difficult thing to experience for sure. And so in this video, I just kind of wanted to talk about that. And for those of you who may be new, this may not be the most uppity, exciting video, I guess, because it's about a failed frozen embryo transfer, and our failed embryo transfer. It's the only one we've ever had, and it failed. And so I just kind of wanted to let you guys know how the past. It's been 1 week now since we found out that it failed. And I just kind of wanted to kind of, I guess in a way, kind of off the cuff. I haven't written down anything or structured it really well, but just wanted to let you guys know some of the thoughts and things I've experienced because of it. Definitely when I took that pregnancy test on Friday when we were 7 past our 5-day transfer, and it was stark white negative. It was very hard, and the video before this, you can see that raw emotion, those tears, that devastation, that fear that something is more wrong, that it may never happen. If we're doing all of this and it still didn't happen, just those fears come in, and then that, tiny glimmer of hope, and that, and looking on Google, which is not the best idea, but has anyone else had negatives on 7 days past 5-day transfer and gotten a positive in their beta? And there are people, so it's like, oh, maybe there's hope. And I was too scared to test again at home because I just was so hurt by that I just didn't want to do that. So, but then we got that confirmation on Monday the 25th that it was negative and that we were not pregnant. And it's hard. It's really hard. And it's not how I pictured myself when I think back of when we started this whole process. I took my first injection on December 27th to start this whole IVF process, and I was really hoping that the end of March, beginning of April would look different than this. There were definitely times when I struggled with feeling like it wasn't going to work, but there were also times when I was feeling hopeful and feeling that, even just kind of planning, daydreaming about what it could be like to tell my family and my friends and all that stuff. And it's not like that. We aren't pregnant, and we're not telling friends and family that we're pregnant. We're telling them that it failed. And it's hard to say that. It's hard to even, there was times when I didn't even want to face people or tell people, because it just felt almost like reliving that devastation again myself. But as I started to talk about it, and my family was here thankfully too, so they were, and Casey was home most of the day that day, so that was super great. And we were just able to grieve and cry and talk about it, and then going to church, going to our life group, and just kind of crying, and that was okay, and that thankfully they my friends and my family gave me a safe place to do that, that it was okay to cry about it. It was okay to be sad about it, because it's just sad and it sucks. And so I was able to do that, and just kind of, even though it's uncomfortable sometimes for me to cry in front of people, somehow I felt the freedom to do that. And I think that that was really helpful for me, and just to say, no, it didn't work, and when you're not pregnant. And so yeah, I think, you know, those are some of the things, even simple things like I went to the chiropractor today, and just kind of realizing I'm going to have to tell my chiropractor, because I was telling him about what we were doing and everything. And just, you know, when we're so open about it, you know, and I'm thankful that we're open about it, but it just is kind of like, it's this more bigger list of people that you got to update. But then as I was doing it, it was so good, and so good to receive from them as well, receive their comfort and their affirmations and their prayers and their encouragements and their hugs, and just different things like that. It's just so good as well. And so yeah, that's definitely something I've been experiencing. Also, I feel as though, you know, we do have 2 more embryos, but it's like, and so I'm so thankful for that. So thankful. I know so many people don't even have that. And so I'm super grateful that we have those 2 embryos. And so we do have a chance to try again without having to go through the whole egg retrieval process and everything. But it's like, once, I feel like, at least right now, it's almost like, because we've experienced this failure, I move forward wounded, and I move forward in a way that is restrained in my hope. And because it's already failed, and everything was kind of supposedly perfect. And I'll get into more stuff later as to maybe some things we might do differently. But this video is really just kind of focusing on the emotional part of it, I guess, and just the mental part of it that we've been experiencing. So yeah, I think just that idea that moving forward is, we now go forward with like a scar, with a wound. And I've kind of felt similarly when we did our first IUI and that failed. And it just kind of feels like this thing of like, and kind of like what I talked about in my first video, and I'll link to my video about talking about our infertility journey and all of that stuff, of all we've been through for over 5 years now, to try to have a baby. It's just that feeling of, if I go down this route, if I do these treatments, if I end up having to do IVF and it doesn't work, then that's kind of the end of the road. And that's tough. Like, when you really long to have a baby and you realize that, you know, I definitely don't feel like we're at the end of the road right now, but it definitely feels like a big bump in the road. And we're getting very close to the end of the road. So that's another thing that I feel like I've been experiencing. Something else, though, I do want to talk about, and it's actually really cool, is that the day after we did our frozen embryo transfer, I was reading in this book, and I've been reading this book for a while. I slowly read it and chew on it. That's how I have to read this book. And it's a book called The Broken Way by Voskamp. And it's been a really big source of encouragement for me in the midst of suffering. And I read this part of this book at that point, and without even knowing what our results were going to be, and really kind of moving forward hopeful. And but didn't know that, I needed to hear it then, but I also really needed it throughout that week, and when we found out it didn't work. And I just want to share this with you because I also feel like this is something I've been experiencing. And that is basically this presence. So God's presence with me in my suffering, and him grieving with me, and him holding me in my suffering. And through his presence and time with him and worship of him, but also through my family, through my friends, through my church community, feeling that sense of presence and in the midst of suffering, and an empathy and a grieving with in the midst of grief. So this is the quote I just want to share with you guys. Lament carries brokenness in its hands straight to the heart of God and asks for his arms. In the midst of suffering, no one needs clarifying arguments as much as they need to feel arms close. So he gives an experience of himself instead of mere explanations, because he knows explanations can be cold comfort and his arms are warm. What warms us is the wounded, weeping God who doesn't write any answers in stars, but writes his ardent love for us with his wounds, right into our wounds. And so this was really comforting to me, just knowing that it's not explanations that I need, it's not answers in the stars, it's not some even picture of him one day giving us a child, because ultimately he hasn't promised me that. But he does promise that he is with me, and he is wounded just as I experience wound, and he has experienced grief and suffering and understands when I experience that, because he's experienced it so much more than me. And he is present with me, and his arms close is what I need ultimately. And I don't ultimately need the answers as to why, the questions, but I need his presence. And so I just wanted to share that with you guys, because it's just been a comfort for me during this time. And I hope that it can be a comfort to you as well. But yeah, that's kind of where I am right now, and just wanted to share that with you guys. So thank you so much for watching, and I'd love to hear from you down below, any thoughts you have after experiencing something like this. And again, just letting you know you're not alone in suffering and grief. And yeah, so I will see you in the next one. Bye.